Welcome to Levels of Connection, where we discuss how human connections work and why they're so important. Welcome to Levels of Connection. I'm Stefanos Papadopoulos, and my guest today is James Madison. James helps leaders get clear and get out of their own way. He provides his own very unique and interesting insights into connecting, which were shaped in a big way from the different countries that he grew up in. Take a look and find out more. James Madison, welcome to Levels of Connection.
Stefanos, glad to be here, man. I love hanging out with you.
Likewise, it's always a pleasure to interact and have these chats. It's amazing. To introduce you to our audience, James Madison is a leader, and what you do is help other leaders. And what you do more than that, you help them get clear and get out of their own way. Tell me
Get
more
out of
about that, James.
the. Yeah, I'm sure you find this too with clients, but we are our biggest barrier and obstacle. It's usually the 6 inches between our ears, right? And so helping people get clear on what they want, where they are, what the perceived stories are, then create a path, head in a direction, get out of their own way, and allow all the things that are meant for them to show up and be created is the simplest way to explain what I do.
Hmm, sounds good. Thank you for coming again. And
Yeah.
talking about levels of connection, what does even connecting with other humans, mean to you, James?
Yeah, connect is one of my big words in life. And I think it's that for me it's always been this human to human connection. This I don't want to use the word connection to describe it, but really getting to know someone at a level beyond the mask and really like
Mm,
taking down a few layers and finding things in common, even things that are different, to really form this relationship. It's the basis of relationship connection. I love to connect and to connect people.
and I can see that in you, and that had a lot of talk to me a little. I know that you've lived in many countries and
Yeah.
had different careers. How did you balance that, and how did connecting play a role, I guess, in moving from one country to the other?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that, but so I was an army brat. My father was in the military, so I lived in France, Belgium, Germany, all over the states. And so imagine every 3 years in school having to pick up in the middle of the school year and drop into not another school but another country, right? And so it was just survival to learn how to connect.
Mm,
And all of my friends and peers that I grew up with, we all did that. That's just what we did because we picked up every 3 years and moved. And connecting was a way of fitting in because I'd be living in Arizona where everybody wore a certain type of shorts, listened to a certain type of music, wore certain kind of t-shirts, and then I moved to Paris and then all, and so back then it was about fitting in, right? Not belonging, which is a whole nother story. But so
mm.
then it would be like, okay, what do they do here that's cool? What do all the girls like? Well, how do I start to appropriate cool in this particular environment? And one of my tricks was I love to play basketball and I love all sports. So when I'd get to a new school, I would head straight to the basketball court at recess. That was the place to connect because once I started to play and have some success, that success
Mm.
translated into open relationships and connecting, and then I was in. And so it was just a way of life for me.
And so as a child, you were moving from country to country, and that allowed you or pushed you, or you said it was like a survival mechanism.
Yeah, it really was just it was a way to survive and to find a group of friends like fast. Because
Mm,
again, imagine peer pressure. You're third grade and you pick up and move across the world and you enter into class and the class has already started for the year. People know each other, right? And
yeah.
because in those classes they were all made up of military children, they all rotated just like I did. So there was nobody that stayed in one place. That was just the way of life. And I knew that from day one. So I didn't know anything different. So adapting, being flexible, fitting in was just, yeah, it was the way I learned to grow up.
How did you use that skill that you developed later in, in adult life where you changed either, careers?
It's almost like growing up was practice for that, because every job I went into, every company I went into, each time I went to an event, it was just like starting school all over again. It was getting
Mm,
into a place. uh, I learned to kind of size people up, and one thing I'm really good at doing is observing people and their behavior, and reading people and seeing people, because that's what I did. And so when I go into a new job, I observe. I find where can my skills fit. Who are the people that I really want to connect with? Because together we like that. That was what I learned how to do. And so when I go places, I'm never alone. I'm never a stranger. I can kind of navigate those things. That's not always deep connection. I learned that sometimes is just connecting for the sake of getting things done, or being able to fit in. It's not always deep connection. I learned later in life. It was a little bit more on the surface to kind of feel a sense of belonging, I guess.
mm. Talk to me a little bit more about that, about the different levels that you see, since you mentioned about, you know, the example that it may not be it's one level, but what are the other levels that you see? How do you see that working?
Yeah, I think of the levels of connection going deeper and deeper, and the word that comes to me is vulnerability. Right? The more vulnerable and the more I open up and share with someone, that's when it gets to be deeper. And I was thinking about this before the call, but if you think about rings, almost like rings of a tree, and in the center ring for me is God. That's my strongest, deepest connection, right? That's where I should spend most of my connecting time. The next
Mm.
ring would be my spouse, my wife is next. Then is my children and my family, and then is friends, and then all the way out. And so now I can see that I should disproportionately spend my time that way. The person in ring 14 doesn't get to have as much of me as my family, or those closer. And so now I can think about setting boundaries based on that, and so that I'm spending the right time with the people that are most important, or things most important in my life. That's something that I never applied back then, because it was more of a mechanism to fit in, where this deeper connection, really, I think more about those that are closer to the center.
When did you start realizing that?
I think it was on this coaching journey. You know
Mm.
this, but when you get on this coaching journey, y y personal transformation is going to happen,
Oh yeah.
right? And I think over the last 4 years, the personal transformation, the things I've grown, is when I've kind of started to look at that, and I even was able to look back at my whole life, where I just was trying to always fit in, but I never
Mm.
sensed, I never felt like I truly belonged. And I don't think I knew the difference. Fitting in was just survival. It's just what I did. But that sense of belonging, like, fitting in means you change something to be able to fit in. And belonging says you just show up, and it's a state of mind. You just belong. I never felt a sense of belonging because I was always trying to fit in.
How did you realize the difference?
Again, through I think it was through coaching, in one of Rich's groups,
Mm.
that concept was discussed. And we love distinctions, right? We love distinctions.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. Okay, so what I've been doing is I've been trying to fit in everywhere, which is performative. It's performance.
Mm.
It's having an intent to get something done, versus just showing up and saying, "This is me. Take it or leave it. Connect if it works." Smaller, deeper connections, not so broad to get everything done, or get work done, or fit in. And just probably in the last year have recognized that difference in fitting in and belonging.
How has that changed the way that you connect?
I got to tell you, it's like it just liberated me, because now I don't have the objective of needing to be something to connect. I just show up as me, and the connections happen or they don't, and that's okay.
Mm.
Either
Mm.
way, if they happen and they go deep, great. If they don't, that's okay as well. Um, and I think the one thing that I've learned is, connection before used to be always looking for what's in common. find the common thing. Find that was the key to connecting, was find something in common, because then that opened up the floodgates for conversation and sense of feeling like can relate to somebody. In the coaching journey, I've learned to actually look for differences, because that's where I can grow, is when someone has something that's different than me. And I think before it was always like, what's in common? Now I look for things that are different, because that's where I can kind of push to my edge and partner with people and look for things. And I think that's a real big difference for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I love the way that you describe it, and I can almost see you, going through the different levels and realizing that distinction that you mentioned between fitting in, and
Oh yeah.
really connecting. Um, you know how many times we say, you know, once you've reached one goal or one thing that you would like to do or accomplish, or feel, what's beyond that? And I was thinking the other day of, what's beyond connecting?
Hmm. Yeah, beyond connect, because again, I always thought of connecting as this means to fitting in, right?
Mm,
And if I think about what's really beyond that, it's this freedom, this total freedom to just, for me to be who I was created to be, with no intent, no outcome, no objective, just me showing up everywhere as I am and allowing natural connection to happen. Like that's different than what I learned to do, which was have a specific intent and objective to get something done, to get to know someone that could help me, that kind of thing, to feel validated as a person, that I
mm.
connected, like all those performative things. Now it's freedom to just show up, and now I just watch the connections happen naturally. I don't force them, and sometimes they're not very deep, and sometimes they go deeper, and I can accept them all.
Mm.
They're all okay.
And you said the word freedom, but it sounds so liberating the way that you talk about it. So you show up as yourself, unapologetic, confident and proud of who and what you are. And if people like that and connect, and you like it and connect, the reciprocity, fine. If not, there's no, there's no regret or no agenda about that.
Yeah, it's just and without having an agenda or an outcome, it's just more. Again, it's like you said, more liberating. And one thing I have learned is that because of not having an agenda or objective, I don't enjoy small talk for the sake of small talk. That to me, like where I would endure that in the past and it would be very draining because I had some intent and some outcome, I don't do that anymore. Almost to a fault. Like I don't even try to pretend to just make talk about the weather or things if I'm not really interested in that topic. And will typically look for something a little deeper to connect with someone. And if not, then I kind of move on. Like I don't just stay in that space.
How do you encourage your clients to develop their sense of connection or their own definition of what connecting means to them?
Yeah, what I do is I try to look for and ask them like what it is that they really care about when it comes to relationship, because connection is obviously a big part of relationship. So I get to learn a lot about their family, their friends, stories about how they grew up, and I get a sense for how important relationships are. And based on understanding that, then I it will naturally appear to me, how important connection is, whether they spend much time doing it or not. And then I can kind of draw that out of them and show them in their own stories, how connecting has been a big part of their life or it hasn't.
And what if they're, timid or afraid to connect? You were asking me, before the call, what was the inspiration for creating this channel? And it was because when I was a child, I had a great difficulty connecting with other people. I didn't even know how to interact, how to make new acquaintances, friends. But my curiosity was much bigger than my fear. So slowly I started to fumble around different connections, either on the basketball court or the playground or wherever I was. And you suddenly start getting a hang of it, or falling into uncomfortable situations, being embarrassed, whatever that means. How do you encourage people that are not good at connecting, or they don't feel comfortable at connecting?
Yeah, you know what? Something I probably learned this about 3 or 4 years ago. If I go into a room, it's obviously easy for me to talk to people like me, right? If there are other people like me, I can just that's easy. But someone told me, look for the people that aren't engaging with anybody. Go into a room, look for the one person who nobody is engaging with, who looks uncomfortable. Go up to that person and connect. And so, like, to see that person and for them to feel seen when they're not, as gregarious as other people is kind of a challenge that I've taken and I enjoy. And it's a way to then kind of ask curious questions to draw them out. And I really enjoy that. And again, that person feels seen beyond everybody else that already is connected and is already going to be, energized.
Love that. And if you had to, describe to somebody how to create a habit of connecting, how would you do that? How would you help them?
Yeah, the habit would be to be intentional. First of all, I would get to, like, why do you want to connect? Like, if you don't want to connect, don't force yourself, right? If you see the value in connecting and you appreciate it and it's something you want to work on, then be intentional about, one person a day. When you go to the store or the coffee shop, just have a conversation with the person standing in line next to you. Just something simple, and just practice. See where it goes. You never know sometimes where somebody is in life, and just a positive comment or conversation, you never know where it could end up, So it's a matter of working on those muscles and practicing.
Talking about what you mentioned, sort of, ad hoc, spontaneous connections. Do you have any examples of connections that you created by chance that, with no intention, and they just grew very positive or integral part of your life
Yeah, it's really my story about how I got into coaching. I had left the corporate world, and I had a coach that was helping me transition. And he said, "What is it you want to do now that you're out of the corporate world?" And I said, "I like to be an executive recruiter," because I had really good relationships with executive recruiters when I was on the inside, and I love the matchmaking and relationship building, like that stuff and I know what they need on the inside because I've been a leader in these organizations. I said, I think I want to be an executive recruiter. And 2 days later, I went to my Saturday morning Zumba class, because Zumba is my cardio of choice to this day because it's
there
pure
you
fun.
go.
Literally went to my Saturday morning Zumba class, and I met a lady named Sylvia. And Sylvia was an executive recruiter. And 7 days later, I went to work with Sylvia.
See how powerful Zumba is? There
Right?
you go.
My teacher knew that I was looking for a job, the teacher for the class. I've been going there for years,
Yeah.
never met Sylvia. She said, "Oh,
Wow.
you should meet Sylvia. She was my old boss. She's now in recruiting." Sylvia and I exchanged information. On the following Friday, I went to work with Sylvia. That's how I learned recruiting. That's how I got into coaching. I ended up coaching Sylvia. She has pivoted out of corporate into her own consultant. Like, we have this relationship that keeps giving and giving and giving. And it was just by me recognizing what it is I wanted to do. And then when it showed up, I knew it was for me.
Describe to me the interaction between you, the moment that you had that interaction. Like, was she in one side of the room and you in another, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So the instructor, who I'd known for a few years, at the end of class came up to me and said, "Hey, you should talk to Sylvia." She didn't know I wanted to be an executive recruiter. She just said, "Sylvia is a recruiter. Maybe she can help you find a job," she said to me. She didn't know that I wanted to be a recruiter. Like, this just was serendipitous, right? And so when I went to Sylvia and introduced myself, I said, "Hey, I'm actually looking to become an executive recruiter. Can we talk?" And we exchanged information. We had a call on Monday, and again that Friday I started working with her. So it just unfolded by being being curious and knowing what I was looking for.
Yeah, and at the same time, you shared your desire with your teacher. He introduced you, but you took the active step to go and speak with her.
Yes.
So you were speaking, you were expressing what you wanted to do to different people. and they introduced you and you took action. You weren't just sort of, laying back, and so you took action on that. And that's why I was asking, describe the detail to me to understand how you did it and how you acted upon it.
Yeah, because what's funny is I never applied anywhere to be a recruiter. I never went
Mm,
on any website, or I didn't even know what to do. I literally just met her, found out she did exactly what I wanted to do. We connected. I had no idea where it was going to go. I think I had 2 interviews that week, and then Friday I started a week
mm,
later. And so I kind of knew it was for me because I was looking for it. And then I
yeah.
just followed the path and ended up doing that. We've known each other for like 4 years, have worked together, done things together. It's just this relationship. We connect each other to different opportunities because we know
Nice.
what it is that we both do.
So in that instance, you spoke it into the world. You expressed it to different people. So that's connecting outwards and that's communicating. How do you how do you interact and how do you connect with yourself?
Yeah, that's the hardest part. Connecting with people is easy for a person like me. For me, it's to really, this is something I've been working on for the last 4 years. It's to slow down.
Mm,
Is to really slow down. And one of my favorite techniques is to go on a walk. When I go on a walk around the block here where I live, I don't listen to podcasts, I don't listen to music. I just go and walk. And it's just like I enjoy, the sounds, what's going on, people, the trees. I just appreciate, and it feels like that sense of connectedness to something bigger is
mm,
really, really clear for me when I've done that. Back during the pandemic, before I got into this space, I would listen to audiobooks, right? Audiobooks 6 hours. I would
mm.
listen to it on 2x. It was
Wow.
because I was in this mentality of consume, consume, consume,
Yeah.
consume, get all
Yeah.
this, right. That was nuts. And I put it
Mm,
on 2x because if it played at the regular speed, my mind would wander. I had capacity, my mind would wander.
wow.
Right. So I'd speed it up, and I'm telling you, it was so fast, sounded like a duck.
Did it make sense? Did the text make sense?
What's funny is it made sense because it was finally moving as fast as my brain moves. But
Love
that's really insane because the whole point is to slow down, not to speed up.
that.
So at some
But
point,
how did you realize that you had to slow that? Not, I mean, that you wanted to slow down. What was the tipping point of that?
I think I was talking to someone. It was in a men's group on a Saturday, and this person said, "Try this. When you get in your car, do not turn on the radio." And that, don't listen to a podcast, right? And that's when I was like, I'm going to try this. So even to this day, I don't turn the radio on, and I just kind of, I call it the
Mm,
download. Things download to me. I figure things out on the way to the meeting. I get really clear, where I was always clouding that space with 2x information.
mm,
It's ridiculous to think about that now, but I've really learned to enjoy. If I go to the gym, I don't go to the gym and then change and then leave. I go to the gym after I work out. I sit there for 30 minutes and just, so I find these little places where I can just have space, and then that's where I get connected to my thoughts, to what's going on inside, and I've made that a practice ever since.
and what benefits have you seen from that?
Clarity. I'm all about clarity. I get really clear on where I am, what it is I want to create. I get clear on opportunities. I even get clear on people that I should reach out to that day. I mean, it's that profound that
Mm,
people will come to mind during those periods, and I'll reach out to that person. And it's funny that 9 times out of 10, they needed something or I needed something from each, like it just, like I just trusted that process and
yeah.
reaching out to them. How's it going? And then all of a sudden I'd get messages back, that were really long based on what was going on. So I learned to like kind of get into this rhythm of life versus trying to drive it and force it, but flow with it more. And it
Mm.
it causes me to really slow down.
Yeah, you mentioned process. What can you describe to us a little bit your way of connecting, or if you have it sounds like it's a part of your, being at this point, but what is your way of connecting if you had to describe it to somebody that would like to have something more process oriented or like a system set up?
Yeah, I think if I think about it now, what I do is I am very intentional about sharing something vulnerable about myself. Like I lead with vulnerability. So I'll share something maybe that somebody wouldn't share. It's almost like fishing with that because when I
Mm.
share something vulnerable, if the person I'm talking to usually may feel like, wow, okay, you shared something vulnerable. You know what? I've got that same experience. And now this connection develops quicker. And so I don't even try to beat around the bush and just kind of like I'll go in with something that comes to me in the moment that's a little vulnerable, and it's almost to see, if that lands. If it doesn't, great, but I kind of lead with that versus, starting with all the mask and all the things because it's a waste of time, honestly, for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is I just, we talk about the vulnerability hangover with Rich, right?
Mm,
It's kind of like
mhm.
I'll look for the one thing that I could share in a conversation that might be a little vulnerable, too vulnerable, and
That
then
you're gonna regret later, maybe.
that I regret later. But what happens is it disarms the other person.
Yeah, yeah.
And if that happens correctly, then all of a sudden this conversation happens and this connection at a deeper level in a short period of time that benefits us both.
And how often, you mentioned something about once a day or once a week. How consistent are you?
You know what's funny? What's funny? I'm like, the fish in the water that doesn't know they're wet. that's that's kind of me because it's just I breathe and I connect and I see people and I love people and I love relationship, and so I think it's just a really natural thing for me
Mm,
to
mm,
connect and to help. I really love to help others connect.
okay.
Um, One of the things I love to do as I meet people, I'm always thinking, oh, who should I introduce this person to? Because they mentioned something, somebody else mentioned that. Let me connect you to them. So I love to connect people when I
Yeah,
hear that there are things in common or interest. That's one of my greatest joys as well.
nice. Um, if you had to if you had to go back and speak with your 20-year-old self, what would you tell, young James around connecting?
I would tell James, first of all, the lying belief that you had that you're not good enough is not true. That's the first thing, because that
Mm,
created all of these patterns of needing to connect, to prove and belong and all that stuff, right? So I'd say, hey, don't worry about fitting in. Be yourself everywhere you go, and the people that you're supposed to meet and the opportunities that are yours will show up. You don't need to chase after them. They'll actually chase after you when you're being yourself.
there, there you go. There you go. There's been so many insights from our chat today, James. Thank you very much for,
Me
for
too.
being here. Yeah. What was, being both coaches, I can't help myself by, from asking, what was useful for you today?
Yeah, I think because I connect so naturally, I never really thought about the fact that it was a way of life for me.
Mm,
and
mm,
and and that and I think the big insight I had was I used to connect only to find the things in common, and now I connect to look for the things that are different because that's where we as coaches get pushed to our edges and
yeah.
find and stretch ourselves, and that never would have been the case in the past. It would have always been what's in common, what's in common. Now I actually am comfortable in looking for the places that are more tension or a little bit difference to understand and try on to expand my own range. And that's something I've learned in the last year, really expanding my range and not just staying in the range that I'm comfortable in.
And you're going where, the discomfort starts, you're moving away from the known and you're going into the unknown. And, it sounds like wonderful things are happening.
Yeah, and a year ago that's something I never would have done. It would have just been stay with the known. But now I go
Mm,
looking, like the challenge is to look for the uncomfortable because that's where I grow. That's when I'm excited. The more we grow, the more we can help our clients, and that edge
mm.
is what keeps me excited and sharp myself.
Sounds like a great advice to our viewers and listeners as well. Thank you very much, James. And before each end of our episode, I have to invite you to the beautiful Cyprus. So you
Yes.
have to come next time. The next episode should be on we should record it on a beach in Cyprus. So I know you
Man.
travel, so you have to
Yeah.
come to Cyprus.
And I've never been to Cyprus, and so I'd love to come
See?
visit. We'll have to figure out how to collaborate on something so we can work
Oh
together.
yeah.
I can get there,
Come
right?
on
Business
over.
trip. Absolutely. That would be great.
James, it's always a pleasure. Thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you for this topic. This has really, really been good, and I've learned so much. Stephanos, love hanging out with you too. Thank you,
See you
buddy.
soon, buddy.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching and enjoying today's episode with James Madison. You can subscribe and write your comments below, and I'll make sure that I read and reply to all comments. Thank you for your continuous support and interest in levels of connection. See you in the next episode.